Hello artist, Kim here from CustomDollBaby.com. I'm back after a little vacation. I hope that you all had a fun and restful Thanksgiving for those of us in the US who celebrate that holiday. I had the opportunity to take a few days off and visit my grandmother, which was a lot of fun. I'm feeling well rested, I'm excited to be back, and I'm ready to join the race against the deadline as we get our dolls ready who need to be home in time for Christmas. For those of you who are just joining in, we're in the middle of the Reborn with Me series. Throughout the series, we've been going in detail through the process of transforming an As You're Awake Reborn doll kit into a lifelike portrait baby doll. So far, we've done all of the painting and detailing. The paint is sealed, and now we are ready to root. So welcome to Get Ready to Root. Every good process starts with a good plan. Today we're going to get as far as we can into detail on how to draw your rooting plan. But first, let's talk about why you might want to do that. Drawing a rooting plan helps ensure symmetry. So people are bilaterally symmetric, so are baby dolls. Having a plan helps you to root your hair in a way that's symmetric, just like the doll's face. The second reason why you might like to draw your rooting plan is that it creates a natural growth pattern. So for those of us who do directional rooting, the more that we follow a hair growth pattern, the more lifelike the doll is going to look. And the final reason is because you're actually going to root faster. And I'll go through this in more detail in lightning fast rooting. But when you're rooting a hair growth pattern, it's difficult as you're rooting to make decisions as to which way the hair should be going or where your hairline should stop. You don't want to have to answer all those questions while you're rooting. You want it already drawn down so you can just follow the guidelines that you've already put in place. Next, you need to decide what you're going to use to draw your hairline. And in order to make that decision, you have to first ask yourself whether or not you want to keep your rooting plan. On dolls where I do a painted hairline, I will also paint my rooting plan very lightly and bake it on so that the hairline will be there when I'm done. But if I don't want to keep it on, sometimes I'll just use the Genesis Heat Set paints to very lightly put out my hair plan with the intention of washing it off when I'm done rooting. Genesis Heat Set paints are good for a hairline that you want to keep and bake on. They're also good if you don't have any varnish in place. There's no matte varnish, there's no satin varnish, it's just the painted vinyl. The paints are going to stick better to that than wood chalk or pencil. You may want to use pencil if you have a layer of varnish in place and you're just very handy with using a pencil. You can use the pencil to draw your hairline as well. And if you'd like to keep it, you can always put another layer of varnish on top of your pencil markings so that those will be permanently attached to your doll. But pencil is not that great of an idea if you don't want to keep a rooting plan because it does stain and stick to the material. And finally, you can use a good old plain piece of chalk to draw your rooting plan. You don't want to use chalk if there is no varnish in place because it's very difficult to get chalk to stick to the painted vinyl. But if you have a layer of matte varnish or satin varnish on your head, the chalk is going to stick really nicely to that and it all washes off when you're done. So I'm actually going to try using chalk this time to draw my hair plan. There are two types of lines that we'll be drawing in our rooting plan. The first are boundary lines. These lines will help to determine the hairline and help you to know where the hair stops on your doll. This is especially good to have in place when you're rooting around the face. The second set of lines that we're going to draw are the guidelines. So these lines will help you determine the direction that the hair is facing as you root. So we'll be doing both of those at the same time. With that, let's start drawing. The chalk lines can be difficult to see, so I'm going to start us off in Photoshop. There are 5 locations that you need to identify on your doll. And in order to do this, you'll need to study your head from several different angles. The first angle being the back of the head, the front of the face, of course, the profile or side view of the head, and the absolute tip top of the head. So you can just barely see the nose. This gives you the overall shape of the head. That's where we're going to start. The first line that you need to identify is your central center line. So nose to nape, right down the middle of the head. We need this line, that is not straight, but you get the idea. We need this line because, as we were talking about earlier, if people are bilaterally symmetric, we want our head to follow the same kind of symmetry. So we need to get our middle line. Next, we need to look at the side view of the head and we need to find the crown. So I will often start from the mouth and draw a line out to the furthest point on the head. A nice diagonal line. And then I'll land my crown at the intersection of this line and that nose to nape middle line. But you do have a lot of freedom with the crown. So some people have more than one crown swirl. It can be in different places. So I think it's safe to land it anywhere between here and here. You have the freedom to put your crown. So if we go back to our top view, maybe my crown X, I put it right there. Okay. Step 3, we need to find the hairline. So we're going to start with the top of the head again to get that shape. Actually, I'm sorry, I lied. You're going to start with the profile view. So I think of the hairline as starting where the head starts to get flat. So we've got the curvature of the forehead here, then it gets kind of flat and then goes into the rest of the shape. So I like to look at this flat area as a place to begin the hairline. Right, so right here. So you have a lot of freedom to where to land it. You can go all the way to the edge of the forehead if you want your baby to be a fuzzy wuzzy little bear. Or you can come further back to get that kind of newer baby / male pattern baldness kind of hairline. So you've got a range that you can work with. Once you've identified that flat part of the head, we're going to go back to the top of the head view. So say I drew my line here, for this is where it's getting flat. I'm going to trace the shape of the face to get my hairline. Not completely, but you want it to follow the curvature of the face. So maybe on the front view, right, it's going to kind of look like this. Yeah, something like that. So that's the beginning of your hairline. The final landmark that you need to identify is the temple. And this can be difficult to find. If you remember from the blue shading layer, we did a lot of shading in there, so that'll help it to stand out. But it's kind of a triangular area just above the brow bone. Okay, so it kind of looks like that. If you're having trouble finding it on your doll, you can use light and shadows to see the temple. We need to identify the brow bone. The brow bone might be easier to find if you're looking at the doll from the side. So you can see there's a spot where the lights, we kind of have a shadow. So that is where the brow bone is located. We're not trying to draw an eyebrow necessarily, but we do want to know where the brow bone is as part of our rooting plan. It's a little better. And it's about here on the front view. All right, so those are all the shapes that we need to identify before we can draw our plan. Okay, to quickly mark this out on the doll kit, we're going to start with step 1, which is our nose Middle-Nose-to-Nape line. So I'm just gonna lightly, try to go light if you're using chalk. Like deep down I worry that it might scratch the painting if you bear down too hard. Okay, there's my nose to nape line. Step 2 was the crown. So looking at the doll from the side, I think I want my crown to be about here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that on the nose to nape line. X marks the spot. The next thing I'm going to find is the hairline. So as I was saying, we're going to start it at the flat part of the face. And if you're doing a portrait, you definitely want to use your reference photo to land your hairline as well. So I'm going to say this is the flat part of the head. And then I'm going to trace the shape of the face. Just like we did on the Photoshop. I actually have to close one eye to do this because I'm trying to see it in 2 dimensions like we had it on the Photoshop. Okay, there's my hairline. Then we can bring it further forward or back if we need to. You can keep a moist sponge on hand if you need to delete your chalk lines. We're gonna find the temple. So you can actually see it pretty well in the lighting that I have right now in the workshop. It's really an area here. We're going to do that on the other side. Oh, and that bottom line isn't actually meaningful. Okay. And I need to know where my brow bone is. So you can feel it, you can see it. This is where the vinyl kind of jolts out. I'm not trying to draw eyebrows right now, but I need to know where my eyebrows should be. And I just want to harp on this for like 2 seconds because I see a lot of beginner dolls and for some reason the eyebrows are always like an inch higher than they need to be. And I did the same thing when I got started, so I'm not sure why that's such a temptation for folks to put them up in the forehead somewhere. But every sculpt has a brow bone, you just need to find it, and your eyebrows will be slightly below to on that brow bone, not above it. But we'll worry about that more later when we do eyebrows. So these are the main shapes that we need to identify to draw our guidelines.